Hello, my lovely law enthusiast humans. I am FCA and this is my channel. And today I'm going to talk about the real cost of litigation, of lawsuits. Because I do cover a lot of summaries of trials that are going on, but sometimes it's hard to fathom when you're not ever involved in those things what the cost actually is and what the payout is to the clients themselves. So we're going to talk mostly about civil lawsuits here because criminal and civil are very different, and criminal has its own set of craziness, and civil lawsuits are a whole other set of crazy. So let's talk about these costs with a story about the Dairy Queen sisters. So Dairy Queen sisters, Dement and Roby, they opened a Dairy Queen franchise in 2017. They had pooled their money and savings together to build the franchise. It was a dream of theirs, and they like to call themselves the Second Chance Sisters because they hired people who were older. They hired people who were 14 and 15. They hired people, which is legal in the state of New York due to recent changes. And then they also hired people who were felons, who were misplaced, etc. They said everybody needs a job they can call home and are comfortable with. So they did that. Now, that's not to say that every employee was happy and grateful for every little thing. They had some disgruntled employees, as most businesses end up having. And they were hit with a $6 million lawsuit by a formerly laid off employee who didn't say to the story. I will link to everything below, to all of the associated links and resources below, as usual. And so they were hit with a lawsuit. Now, what did the two Second Chance sisters, Dairy Queen sisters, do? They paid bi-weekly, which means they were paying their employees every 2 weeks. And in New York, it turns out that there's a little loophole, this very lesser known law from the Depression era to prevent wage theft, where manual workers, non-corporate, non-office job workers, are required to get paid every week. The sisters had both previously worked for McDonald's and other similar establishments, and they had been paid every 2 weeks. And so when they were paying every 2 weeks, they didn't see it as a problem. It also didn't come up because they said that when they had an audit from the New York Department of Labor, they said they were in the clear. The payroll company didn't ever mention it, and it was never flagged at all. No one ever told them that, like, hey, you have paying bi-weekly isn't actually legal. You got to start paying weekly. And the employee who was suing them to begin with said that she was owed overtime. And the sisters were very adamant that they paid people everything that they were owed. But if you pay bi-weekly instead of weekly, there is a little additional pay thing that you're supposed to add on if you do it that way. But otherwise, you're supposed to pay weekly. They said that it wasn't brought up the whole time they were building their things. And again, even during a federal audit, it didn't come up as a problem. So then they were hit with the $6 million lawsuit. And they were going to be bankrupt. It would have made them homeless because they put their savings and loans against their homes to build the franchise. Their houses were on the line, but they were on the up and up, so they thought they were doing fine. The lawsuit would have put them and other small businesses at risk who maybe didn't know the nuances of law. And, that's what you have a payroll company for. That's what federal audits are for. So they go through this whole thing. They ended up going to change the laws and get some laws changed, making it more notable about what is and isn't allowed. But the new effects from the laws that they made, the changes don't affect them because it wasn't in place at the time they were getting sued. It happened afterwards. So they can't even benefit from the law changes that they put into effect. But they said that they're happy, Dement and Roby, because it will stop other small businesses from facing foreclosures and dismantling businesses. Now, they ended up settling out of court for $450,000. So almost $500,000. Now, of that $500,000 or close to it, do you know how much the suing workers got out of that? Less than $200, like $180 something each. $450,000, almost $500,000, and the people who were actually doing the suing, the plaintiffs in this case, are standing to see less than $200 of it each. $305,000 goes to the lawyers and lawyer fees. So let's talk about that. Let's focus on that as we go more into the story. That is the cost of litigation. Depending on the state you live in, and we'll link this below, but when you get a civil lawyer, when you go to civil court, paying a civil attorney, because you have to buy your own attorney. In criminal law, the prosecution is represented by the state. There isn't another person usually involved in that. There's the state and then there's the defendant. In civil lawsuit, it's plaintiff versus the complaint, okay? And if you buy a civil attorney, the cost of them is anywhere from $150 per hour to $550 per hour, depending on the state that you live in. Sometimes it goes up much more if you go into higher districts, like LA attorneys. You're going to be paying out some money for them. So what that means is, in the course of a month, you could be paying up to $5,000 a month in attorney fees. And that's not to mention, and this particular thing is to prevent clients from harassing their lawyers, but you can also get nickeled and dimed by lawyers for them saying, listen, every email you send me is $50. Every phone call that lasts more than 5 minutes, $50. Or sometimes they're like, even if we have a 30-minute exchange over email or over the phone, I'm charging you per hour. I get paid per hour. So if it's only an hour, if it's only 30 minutes, or you go over, or it's an hour and 20 minutes, you're paying for that. So you could be paying $200 per phone call. And again, this is to stop clients from calling up and going, how far are you on my case? When are we going to do this? I have a problem with this, blah, 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 blah. They only want to be contacted by their client when it's actually important and not just minute nonsense. So if you're going to hit them in the wallet, they're more likely to just let you do your work as an attorney. Now, attorneys' fees are very expensive, because what they usually have to do is they have to pay court fees, and that comes from the lawyer. So the lawyer has their things. They have to pay the court, because they have to pay for the clerk, the county clerk. They have to pay for the judge assistant. A portion of it goes to the judge. A portion of it goes to whoever is cleaning the staff members, who are the bailiffs and those sorts of people. They all get, the court reporter, they get paid from those attorney's fees. That's where that money generates from. So you, as the client, if you sue and you win a $500,000 lawsuit, as we saw with the Dairy Queen sisters, you personally are not $500,000 richer by any means. They were only getting less than $200. Not 200,000, not 2,000, 200. And you know what? They made more on their bi-weekly paychecks than they got paid for this lawsuit. Did they win? You decide if that's what happened. Legally, they got their way, I guess, but when? That's up for debate. So when we say, well, why don't you sue? It's usually the cost. It's usually the cost because, again, we're talking, I don't have just $5,000 willy-nilly per month. And that's if your litigation happens that month. Lawsuits can take a long time. If you didn't see the Karen Reed civil lawsuit update, I will link to that below. But the judge had told them that pre-trial case took place in September of 2025. And the judge warned the plaintiffs, the O'Keefe family, that if you want to keep going with this, it's going to be expensive. Because again, even if we go with $500 a month, the lowest that it is on average, if it's $500 a month, and they're not going to see trial, like actual in court, back and forth, get a resolution with a jury, until maybe 2027, more likely 2028. And you know what you have to do every month? You have to pay that money. And you get charged, and how you get charged is anytime that a lawyer is working on your case, doing case law research, deposing somebody, and that's when they give a little interview and ask questions that they can then use in court about it. Anytime that they are filling out paperwork related to your case, when they go to see the judge, and when they have conferences with the other lawyer about your case, any phone calls they make on your behalf for that case, if they go to do other interviews, questioning, emailing, going over evidence, sharing evidence, that gets calculated by the hour. So even if you don't personally see or even talk to your attorney for the month, you're still getting charged for whatever work they're doing on your case during the month. And I'm not saying lawyers don't deserve to get paid. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is I need people to understand that you're paying for all of the behind the scenes work. Lawyers aren't just show up in the courtroom. You're not just paying for courtroom appearances. You're paying for all of the whole of the work of litigation, the research, etc., that the lawyer does on behalf of your case. And that all adds up. So, and it could change every month depending on, because lawyers always have more than one case going on at a time. And so the time that they spend on your case gets calculated. So 1 month it might be, oh, you're only paying, I don't know, $300 for that month. And then the next month they have more time, some of their other cases resolved, they have more time to focus on your case this month. And now you're paying $1,000 another month because of the time they dedicated to your case. So it's not even a reliable thing of how often you're going to pay. So that is the real financial cost of your litigation is that. And then at the end of it, you're not even, whatever money, if you are awarded the money that you're seeking, $10,000, $6 million, $450,000, you're not getting that money. The court, the judge, the jury can say, yes, we award this money to the plaintiff or to the defendant, whatever. But that doesn't mean that you get that money. That means the money is awarded to the case, and the lawyer gets their costs first, or they get their court fees first, then they get their fees added up, and the client gets whatever is left from that. You will get, if you are awarded money, you will get some sort of financial compensation, but it's not the bulk of it by any means. And so if you're ever wondering why people don't sue over legitimate, like defamation or something like that, it's because of how expensive it is, and you're paying that much money every month, up to $5,000 every month. In civil trial, It's just going to take however long it takes, and when the lawyers and judge for the case are available to make things happen. So you could be waiting years, like multitude of years. We don't see a lot of cases actually go to trial for 4 to 7 years on average before they actually are doing the trial itself. And that whole time, 12 months of every year, going from 1 year, 3 years, 6 years, every month you're paying thousands and thousands of dollars. So now you're going to be stressed about all of that. And if you're trying to sue for certain things, are you going to be employed in that time? And once you go to court, if you're one of the litigants, you don't go to work. And in civil trial, you don't have the same protection as jury duty. Because if you're the one who willingly, consciously brought the lawsuit, you don't have the same worker protections like the jury does. The jury, they get subpoenaed and are forced by law to do their jury duty. Being the plaintiff in a civil lawsuit does not grant those same protections. So are you going to be able to maintain employment when you're sitting in court or going through pre-trial stuff for 8 hours a day for however long that takes place? So there is a time cost. There's a cost of your worry, stress, anxiety, continued exacerbation of pain, and just the insane out-of-pocket costs. And there is no tax cuts for most people who go to lawsuits. So again, just like with the DQ workers, what was that a win for them? Is that going to be a win for you? Just some legal food for thought, just to explain those costs a little more. Oh, here's a fun little tidbit. Do you know that if you get charged and have to get home detention, like you're on at-home lockdown, that you have to pay for your ankle bracelet and you have to pay for the maintenance and update of that, sometimes daily or weekly or monthly, and that could be, and so you could be paying up to $1,000 a month if instead of going to jail, you're at home. Yeah, you have to pay for that because you have to pay for the device itself because you did something wrong. You don't get given that by the state. You pay for it. And if it gets damaged, even if it's by accident, like you fall down the stairs or something like that and it breaks the device, you have to pay for it again. And they can be anywhere from $50 to $800, and you don't get to choose, oh, I want the cheaper option. It depends on whatever your jurisdiction is using and has access to. They choose the one that you get. And not to mention, if you have any violations, it's even more. So you could be paying, if you're at home, you get like at home lockdown for 3 months, you could be looking at about $10,000, depending on how often they check the maintenance on it. So this is why we should obey the laws. And if you don't like a law, go to your local government and start changing the laws a little bit at a time. This is why voting matters too, because the cost of litigation is insane. Just wanted to let everybody know that. I will talk to you all in the next video. Bye, my wonderful humans. Stay lawful out there.